Alright, this is Weapon X Reacts and we're back with another video, and I just saw the film Gladiator 2. I really thought that this film right here wasn't as good as the first one, and it just goes to show you that a sequel was not needed. I'm gonna break down the plot of this film. So years after witnessing the death of Maximus at the hands of his uncle, Lucius is then forced into the Colosseum after the powerful emperors of Rome conquer his home. With rage in his heart and the future of the empire at stake, he looks to the past to find the strength and honor needed to return the glory of Rome to its people. So basically this film is a copy-paste of the original, and it's almost an insult to what made the first film so good. I want to talk about the acting in this film, and I am not gonna lie. Some of the actors do a good job in their roles, and they try really hard to add depth to their characters, but at times, there are moments where some of the acting feels over the top. Like the actors are trying too hard to be intense or emotional, that it just comes off as cartoonish. Like, for example, Joseph Quinn's performance as Emperor Gita. Instead of adding to the drama, it makes certain scenes feel cringy and it pulls you out of the film because you stop thinking about the characters and you start to notice the acting. And this is what ruins the serious tone the film is going for. And it makes it less grounded than the original. The opening battle scene was just stupid and unrealistic. Right from the start, you could tell that they are trying hard to make a big and epic first impression, but it ends up being ridiculous. The fight choreography looks like something out of a video game than an actual battle, and it just does not fit the tone of the film. Actually, the whole damn scene makes no sense, and it's like the writers didn't give a shit about how battles were fought back then. Instead, we get this chaotic mess that comes off as cartoonish and all over the place. What made the battles in the first film so good was how gritty and realistic they felt. Here, it's just another example of spectacle over substance, and it was a really bad way to start the film. I want to talk about Lucius's character in this film, and even though Paul Mescal does an okay job, the problem I have with his character is that he is basically a copy-paste of Maximus. Like how he is another warrior who's lost everything and is now driven by revenge and justice. And it doesn't feel fresh or unique. What made Maximus so compelling as a character in the original was how personal his journey was. And Lucius right here just goes through the motions and it lacks the same emotional weight. It's like they tried to recreate the magic of Russell Crowe's performance and it doesn't come off as good or anything. It's just lazy, which perfectly describes this whole film as just an unintentional remake. Pedro Pascal's character in this film feels wasted, and it's like they didn't know what to do with him, and his role doesn't feel memorable or important. To make things worse is that he is written as this exaggerated and almost cartoonish villain. He's constantly chewing up the scenery, and instead of feeling intimidating or complex, he comes across as cringy and over the top. It's a missed opportunity because Pedro Pascal does have the talent to make his characters compelling, but here, the script doesn't give him anything to work with. And when his character died in the Colosseum, I just didn't care. One thing that I liked about Gladiator 2 were the action scenes, and say what you want about this film, but when it comes to the battles, they really delivered. The choreography is intense and it puts you right in the middle of the chaos. Also, the scale of the action is massive and it has some great set pieces. Even though some parts of the movie don't hold up, the action feels like the one area where they actually put in the effort, and it is exciting, brutal, and it makes this film worth watching. The historical inaccuracies in Gladiator 2 are hard to ignore, and they end up ruining the movie. For example, the inclusion of sharks does not make any sense, and it does not fit the period the film is set in. And instead of feeling immersed in ancient Rome, you're questioning why certain things are there. And I get that sometimes creative liberties have to be taken in, but these choices feel random and unnecessary, as if they weren't trying to stay true to that era. The original Gladiator was not perfect in that regard either, but at least it was believable for the most part. Here, the inaccuracies pile up so much that it's hard to take the movie seriously, which is a big letdown for a historical epic like this. And I heard that someone called this movie pure Hollywood bullshit, and I totally agree with that. The two Emperors of Gladiator 2 are honestly one of the weakest parts of the film, because none of them feel fleshed out or interesting, and the motivations don't make any sense. They're either just over the top or completely boring, with no real depth to them at all. And the performances of these two characters are just awful. When you look at Commodus from the original film, his character was actually compelling. And he wasn't just a villain, he was layered, unpredictable, and flawed. Also, Joaquin Phoenix's performance was really good, and he made Commodus someone you'd love to hate. He was desperate for approval and jealous, but he had a cruel side to him that made him dangerous. Also, his personal rivalry with Maximus made the story feel personal, and you can understand why Maximus hated him. But you saw Commodus's weaknesses, which made him feel human. Here, the two emperors are just forgettable, and they lack that complexity that Commodus had. They just feel flat. And it's sad because Gladiator showed how to make a villain well written, which elevates the story. And this sequel is just the opposite of that. And it sums up the state of Hollywood perfectly. The cinematography in Gladiator 2 feels empty. And unlike the original film, which had a grand sense of scale, this one lacks all of that. And there's nothing memorable or impactful about the way it's shot. And it feels like they didn't put any effort to make the visuals stand out, which is disappointing for a movie like this. Also, Wicked had the same problem too. Connie Nelson did a good job playing Lucilla in Gladiator 2, but it feels like she wasn't given much to work with, and while she gives the same strength to her role as she did in the first film, her character does not have the same impact like before, and it's like the script sidelined her, which is disappointing because she could have added more depth to the story, and she does her best with what she's been given, but to me, her character just felt wasted. I'm going to explain the ending of this film. So after killing Maximus, Lucius gives an inspiring speech to his soldiers about rebuilding Rome, which is what his father Maximus would have wanted. Then we see him returning to the Colosseum, and he picks up some dirt. Then we see a shot of a hand touching wheat in a field. And you should know that this is a homage to the original film. And it is a symbolic moment of one passing through the afterlife, and then the film just ends. And it leaves us thinking about what's next for Lucius's character in this film. I'm gonna show you the trailers of this film, starting with the first one.
I remember that day. I never forgot it. That a slave could take revenge against an emperor. Where were you born? I don't know. I never knew a mother nor a father. they believe in. Power. General Acacius, there are victories yet still to come. Rome has so many subjects, she must feed them. They can eat war. The arena turns slaves into gladiators, and gladiators into free men. You have something in you. I knew it from the start. Edge it out. Rage. And rage is your gift. This is about survival! Survive! Hold together and when a charge is break for the wall. Whose head could I give you that would satisfy this fury? The entire Roman armies. Too much. The general will do. Rome must fall. I need only give it a push. Make it out
Do you notice the biggest problem with this trailer is that the music doesn't even fit the tone of the trailer? And this goes for all modern trailers made today.
This ring belonged to Maximus. Now I give it to you. It's the dream of Rome. People are not free.
I was honest. Now I will control an empire. I will not waste another generation of young men for their vanity. Strength among us!
I'm gonna show you the second one.
It is an art, choosing gladiators. They're usually prisoners of war. I claim this city for the glory of Rome. You have something in you. Wait. Never let it go. It will carry you to greatness. I own you now. But whose head could I give you to satisfy your fury? The general will do. Rome has taken everything from me. But I will have my vengeance. There is plenty of pain waiting for you in the next life. I don't know why you are so greedy for it in this one. Your Majesties, this is your gladiator. It is. I have the trust of the Emperor. It will clear my path to the throne. You will be my instrument. I will never be your instrument. In this life or the next.
Lucius, take your father's strength. His name was Maximus. I see him in you.
Those fighters won't survive.
You must help him.
Strength among us! I don't fight for power. I fight to free Rome from men like them. To restore order, I must have power. Everything is forgotten in time. Empires fall, so do emperors. This is war! The odds are against you. The odds are always against me. What are you doing?
I'm gonna get into my thoughts on this film. This whole film was a massive disappointment, and I did not understand why it had to be made. And one thing I don't get is, why does every single film that came before has to have a sequel, prequel, remake, or spin-off? This just shows you how lazy Hollywood has become, and they're gonna continue on pulling out this garbage to you no matter what, because they don't care about you anymore. They don't care about your time or your money, so don't waste your time with their garbage. And when you look at the first film, it is an absolute masterpiece of cinema. Well, it's just forgettable. Ridley Scott's direction of Gladiator 2 feels inconsistent, and while there are moments of where his skills as a filmmaker shine through, much of the film lacks the focus and passion that made the original so iconic. Everything about this movie felt rushed, and it was like he cared more about getting it done than creating something memorable, and it really reflects the declining quality that we've seen in some of his recent films like Napoleon, which I thought was a complete dumpster fire. Also, it feels like Ridley Scott lost that creative spark that made his films so special, and it already tells me that he needs to retire. Denzel Washington as Macronus was one of the main highlights of the film. He has a strong presence and he delivers his lines with power, making scenes with him stand out. One problem I have with this character is that in some moments, Denzel Washington just plays himself, and there's nothing different about his performance, and it just feels like the same character that we've seen in his other movies. On top of that, his character isn't given much to do, which makes it even more disappointing. It's frustrating because you could see how great he could have been with better material and a more distinct role. One thing that I heard is that in an interview, Denzel Washington said that he kissed a man in the film, but the studio cut it out. And another thing is that he got called out for lying that it happened. This is just another great example of what happens when celebrities act like complete woke idiots in interviews. The soundtrack of the original film was just amazing, and I'm just gonna let you know that one of the songs played at the ending of Gladiator 2, and I'm gonna show you it right now. The CGI in Gladiator 2 is a mixed bag because some of it looks decent, especially in the action sequences, but there are moments where the effects just look distracting and unfinished. Just look at the CGI on the baboons and the sharks, for example, because it really looks pathetic. And not just that, it completely takes you out of the movie. For a film with such a big budget, the visuals should have been a lot better than this. Okay, so I just heard that the cinematographer of Gladiator 2 called Ridley Scott lazy and impatient during the production of this film. It's a bold statement though, but I can say that after watching this movie, I can definitely see why, because everything about this film felt rushed. And to me, it did not need to exist. In conclusion, this was not a good film, and it definitely did not need to be made because everything about it felt pointless. And I totally recommend you watch the original film than waste your time with this pathetic attempt at a sequel. And I'm not gonna lie, this film was a better sequel than Joker 2 ever was. And if there's one thing I want to say about this year is that it just showed how lazy and unoriginal Hollywood is right now, because they're gonna keep pushing out this content no matter what. And if they're this desperate to lose money, then I'm all here for it. Also, anyway, that's all I got for today. Go away now, and always remember, strike back like a weapon against wokeness.